Have we witnessed the last of the Boston Bruins goalie hug? On a night when the Bruins celebrated the recent past, their present and future could be altered today ahead of the trade deadline. Let's get into it on a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things spoke to be. Today is Friday, March 8th. The NHL Trade Deadline is just hours away. I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is probably part one of two episodes today. We're going to spend some time this morning talking about last night's win over the Maple Leafs and the ceremony that took place prior to. Some trade deadline options, rumblings, and also update the power rankings prior to the trade deadline. Again, thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Thank you for checking out yesterday's episode with Mayor Zilberberg. Thank you for following along on social media, and you can do so at Locked NHL Bruins and at Ian C. McLaren. The Boston Bruins, what are they going to do today prior to the NHL trade deadline? They've taken 5 of 6 points this week from the Toronto Maple Leafs and Edmonton Oilers, which is incredibly impressive. I did not see that coming. The Bruins are a pretty good team this year. You know, they are right up there among the best in the NHL in terms of the overall standings. Right now, they're second in points, one back of the Florida Panthers, albeit with one more game played. Their goal differential ranks 5th. And it's very impressive considering the Bruins were supposed to be in a bit of a bridge year, a transition year. They signed some veteran free agents to low-risk deals. Kevin Shattenkirk, James Van Riemsdyk, those have paid off pretty well. They're dealing with $4.5 million in dead cap space owed to Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. In terms of bonuses, both of those guys were in the house last night. And they also have some guys who are going to be due new contracts come this summer, namely Jeremy Swayman, Jake DeBrusk, Matt Grzelcyk, Derek Forbort, if you are intent on keeping them around. Now, there are a lot of rumblings that they could be very active today. Emily Kaplan of ESPN said the Bruins will be a team to watch out for today. It's believed they could be working on something big, she said, in an effort to cement themselves as Stanley Cup contenders. ESPN's Kevin Weeks reported Wednesday that he heard the possibility of Boston being involved in a 3-team trade with the Vancouver Canucks and Pittsburgh Penguins. However, that involved Jake Gensel moving to Vancouver, and he has since been moved to the Carolina Hurricanes in a deal late last night. The Hurricanes have loaded up. The Florida Panthers have added as well, Vladimir Tarasenko. The Maple Leafs have kind of added on the blue line some depth defensemen, Ilya Lyubushkin, Joel Edmondson. The Bruins haven't really done anything. And, you know, I've heard everything from, Linus Ullmark, Jake DeBrusk in play with the Kings for Pierre-Luc Dubois, which I'm not a fan of at all. You would get the long coveted center, young center, but he has not played great for the Kings this season, and he's got some attitude and effort issues that date back to his time with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm not a fan of that one. Or they could be just in on some depth, nicked out in Washington, etc. The Bruins are going to be a fascinating team to watch here today. Should they trade Linus Ullmark? I mean, that is a huge debate, and it's possible you could get more for him in the summer. It's a very real possibility because Swayman is a restricted free agent. He's going to get a huge raise this upcoming summer. You might not want 10 million plus invested in your goaltending tandem. It works right now because it's, less than 9 for a 1A, 1B situation, but they have clear needs elsewhere. Defense, center, scoring winger. It's not necessarily an area of strength, as we've been saying, but a luxury that the Bruins must, subtract from in order to add elsewhere. That's the argument that could be made. Jake DeBrusk, there's questions about whether or not he's going to sign a long-term contract with the Bruins, whether or not the Bruins have an appetite to do so. Sending those two guys out would open up, $9 million in cap space. You can bring someone in or two to help elsewhere, center, scoring winger, etc. Doesn't make the Bruins a better team. Can they give the reins to Jeremy Swayman so that he can run with that job and succeed without his, brother in net? You saw Jeremy Swayman after the game last night. He was asked about it. Pretty emotional about even just the possibility of Linus Ullmark being traded. And that tandem works. Like, it's a special relationship. I don't know if you want to break that up. But in order to improve elsewhere, it might be a situation where Don Sweeney's seriously looking at it, and we'll find out here over the next 6 hours whether or not that comes to pass. I'll jump on YouTube for immediate reaction if and when any trades are made, and be back later today to do a full post-trade deadline recap show. First, we're going to discuss what happened last night against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. There's more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. Factor's the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, premium options with no cooking required. Now, there's the belief that the Bruins held off on doing anything yesterday as they look for the best options, but also because they had a big night with several members of the 2011 Stanley Cup championship team in the house as part of the Final Eras night, Return of the Champions. It was a very fun and emotional ceremony seeing a bunch of these guys come back in the house. It was amazing to see Tim Thomas, Michael Ryder, Sean Thornton, just a bunch of guys coming back. Would have loved to have seen Nathan Horton in the mix there. Rich Peverley, I always have a soft spot for. He wasn't there. He's working for the Dallas Stars. Some other guys were there, not there for obvious reasons, recent history, legal issues, but it was still amazing to see the ceremony. And the Bruins came out and took it to the Toronto Maple Leafs for the second time this week, winning by an identical score of 4-1, similar to what they did on Monday. It was a very spirited affair. The Bruins' first goal came on a 5-on-3 power play after a couple of cross checks that were leveled by Jake McCabe. Trent Frederick got the game winner, made it 2-0 at 4:16 of the second period after stealing the puck from William Nylander and beating Joseph Woll on a breakaway 5-hole. And Jeremy Swayman had a fantastic game in net once again. If this was a playoff preview, then it bodes well for Boston because they played great against the Leafs, both at home and on the road this past week. Toronto had a slight edge in shots, 29-26, out shooting Boston 10-5 in the final frame as they tried to get it going. No scoring in the third period after Morgan Geekie and Brandon Carlo sealed it with goals late in the second period, well, to secure the win. The Bruins won all 4 games against Toronto this season. One was in a shootout, one was in overtime. The ones this week were in regulation. And again, that's your likely first round matchup in the playoffs. And that bodes well for the Bruins, of course, in round 1. Now it's a totally different story once the playoffs come around. Some changes could be made. Toronto did outplay Boston at 5-on-5. They had 57% of the shot attempts, 54% of shots. Scoring chances were 50-50, and Boston did have more high danger chances than the Toronto Maple Leafs. In fact, in all situations, it was 15-7. So the Bruins, a well-earned win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the one area that they really needed to work on, faceoffs. Toronto won 60% of the faceoffs last night. The difference was the power play. Boston went 2 for 5. Toronto went only 1 for 4. Scoring from Mitch Marner in these past 3 games against Toronto, Edmonton, only 1 even strength goal was scored for the Boston Bruins. Against the Boston Bruins, I should say. Just a great stretch of games here. Yes, they lost to Edmonton. They blew a lead, lost in overtime, etc. But that was on a back-to-back. We should be fair to the Leafs. They were playing the second of a back-to-back as well. So they were tired. They've got some illness running through their locker room. It's important to keep that in context, but still, he got it done, and or the Bruins got it done, and it was a big win on an emotional night for this team. So great to see the Bruins with the Stanley Cup in the house. The Toronto Maple Leafs sat out the ceremony, didn't want to witness them celebrating the 2011 championship again. They were kind of criticized for that. I get it. Why would you want to sit there and watch that? They're not going to come out and applaud I mean, it would have been classy. It would have been nice, but still, I don't blame them for not coming out and not bearing witness to this celebration for the 2011 Boston Bruins. It would have been nice to see a couple more cups in that era. They were celebrating 2001 to the present. We had 2013, 2019, 2023 were great opportunities, but they only have the one cup. Get into the playoffs. Truly anything can happen, as we saw last year with the Florida Panthers. Claude Julien was in the house. He called out the starting lineup in the locker room, which was very cool. The Bruins, to their credit, have done an amazing job this season celebrating the team's history and the centennial. And I'm kind of interested to see what the Bruins do in the playoffs in terms of jerseys. I'd love to see them wear these centennial jerseys at home or even just keep the gold ones. We'll see what they do jersey-wise there, but just checking in on the latest tweets. Jimmy Murphy saying As of now, the New Jersey Devils are not in on Linus Ullmark. They're still pursuing goalies, but Ullmark is not one of them. I thought perhaps Tyler Toffoli could be in the mix there. He was a guy that I've always wanted the Bruins to go after. It's big decisions to come for Don Sweeney today on Linus Ullmark, on Jake DeBrusk, on perhaps Matt Grzelcyk, some other pending unrestricted free agents who may be in play. Now, I had said last night the Bruins should be selling and giving some kids the opportunity. That wasn't to say they're throwing in the towel. They're second in the NHL in points right now, with some clear holes on this roster. My thinking was you sell Forward, who hasn't played much lately. Try to get anything you can for him, even if it's a 7th round pick. Clear up some cap space. Give some young kids the opportunity here to get some experience down the stretch in meaningful games, even in the playoffs. It's a win-win. You're giving guys important experience. You're getting some playoff games in. Who knows what could happen with some youthful exuberance in the mix there. Anyways, that was just my thought there. Not to sell and throw in the towel, but to just be smart with your assets. If guys aren't coming back, don't lose them for nothing and try to get some picks. Give some younger guys the opportunity to move up. Now we're going to quickly update the power rankings pre-trade deadline here in the East, and we'll do that as the podcast continues. All right, Don Sweeney today is evaluating potential candidates to join the team. And if you're looking to add to your team, there's no better place to look than Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. With the instant match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offers valid through March 31st. Again, Indeed.com/lockedon to claim a $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply, but if you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Let's quickly update the Eastern Conference power rankings here pre-trade deadline. The Pittsburgh Penguins are outside of the wild card race at the moment. Tampa, Detroit holding those two spots with 72 points. The Penguins have 64 points. They sold off Jake Gensel last night. They did get Michael Bunting back, but it looks like, not that they're throwing in the towel, but it's a curious decision. And even Sidney Crosby isn't kind of sure what the messaging is there. They do have 3 games in hand on Tampa, but certainly looks as though they are not counting on being a playoff team. The Devils are still in the mix. The Capitals and Islanders are also outside the playoff picture. But again, Tampa has only 18 games left, whereas the Capitals have 21. The Islanders have 20. So we could see some shakeup there in the wildcard race. The Red Wings, by point percentage, hold the first spot. The Islanders have the second spot. They have a slightly better goal differential than the Tampa Bay Lightning. Capitals still in the mix. Penguins, maybe the Devils, but it's going to be very difficult for them to jump up. Now, I should add, in the Metro, the Flyers only have 74 points. So the Islanders could even move up into third. Conceivably, they're 4 points back with 2 games in hand. So the Metro, very interesting to watch. The Rangers are in first right there. They have yet to make a big move here at the deadline. they might want to counter what Carolina did last night by picking up Jake Gensel. Those are the top 2 teams in the Metro, the teams you want to watch out for, certainly over there. Now in the Atlantic, the Panthers are holding on to the number 1 spot. They did lose last night, but they've got 90 points, one more than the Bruins with a game in hand, plus 60 goal differential, which is tops in the NHL, and they certainly look like the team to beat in the East. Can the Bruins hang with Florida? Well, first they would have to get through the opening round, and that matchup looks like it will be against the Maple Leafs, unless Detroit can somehow make up 8 points between Toronto and themselves at the moment with one game in hand. Boston, they just swept the Leafs this week with twin 4-1 regulation wins. The Leafs have added, but kind of underwhelmingly on the blue line. And I think the Bruins could take the Leafs in the first round, especially if they're able to add and not subtract too much from the lineup today. You have to take into consideration the vibes. Seriously, will subtracting Ullmark adversely or negatively affect the team? Will trading Jake DeBrusk negatively affect the team? Depends who you bring in, of course. If it's for Pierre-Luc Dubois, I don't know if he's a fit culture-wise for the Bruins. Very, very interested to see what the Bruins do today in order to try to keep up with the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference. It's not an all-in year for the Bruins, I don't think, but they can get creative and they can solidify their position this season as well as try to get ahead of the summer free agent market by adding a top center, which is what they desperately do need. So that's a quick and dirty pre-trade deadline episode here on your Friday. I will be back later on today to discuss anything the Bruins do here prior to the trade deadline. Hope you're all having a great Friday. Take a deep breath, friends. We're going to get through this together. Thank you so much for taking part in today's episode, and we'll be back later on a post-trade deadline episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.